Could you be the next AVBOB Poetry Prize winner? Enter the 2020 competition between 1 August and 30 November and win 10,000 Rand.
13 South African poets share the secrets behind their most intimate poems. We will discover who they are, where they come from, and the road they've had to travel. They will reveal what inspires their poetry and ultimately what gives them hope. Welcome to another episode of I Wish I'd Said.
Puppet Master, Caroline F. Archer. A cat is smudging its shadow against the picketing, gliding with the slant of the sun. The garden suffocates soundlessly. Lizards skitter and blink, the yard teeters on a tightrope. Late noon, the pigeons scuffle, warble, and settle next to the chimney to discuss the dry dust on the moon. The empty seas of tranquility and serenity, the bay of rainbows. Evenings don't smell of lavender. Fragrance and the flight of butterflies have been captured in a jar. The house leaks sounds of a stew simmering on the stove. A creaking door, shuffling feet, shoes that scold the floor. A pot gurgles in a shifting pitch. Little more. One moment a boy might be 11 or so, then he wakes in this house. Childhood, but a distant memory. Death does not sweep down with a scythe. Does not have a skeleton face. He sits on the roof, humming listlessly.
She's a wonderful woman. She's the most empathetic person. She tries to be hard sometimes, but she's not very successful with that. Kind, loving, actually couldn't hurt a fly. She tries sometimes, she gets angry, but no.
Today we meet Caroline F. Archer at the historic Smuts House Museum in Irene, where we explore her journey to becoming a writer. We also uncover what inspired her AVBOB Poetry Competition winning submission, The Puppet Master.
I've grown completely into myself. I'm very much a family person, but that is the small family, not broader. I'm not out to impress anybody, really. I'm at home with myself, I'm at home with my husband. I love where I am and I love where I live. And I can't tell you how much my children mean to me.
Where did Caroline's love for story come from?
My grandmother, the one I loved so much, that told me all about the Boer Wars. She was Caroline. And I got her name, Caroline F. And she was Carolina Francina Lochner. She was from the Cape Colony. My grandfather, on my mother's side, was a farmer and a teacher, a very bright guy. But during the wars, my grandmother was pregnant. She was breastfeeding 2 children at the time. And being from the colony, she was not really allowed to have anything, and her husband as well, to do with the wars. Her husband died during the wars, but he really loved her, and he said to his best friend, "Please marry my wife and look after her. I'm concerned for her." And he did so with great joy. She was a beautiful lady. And he was a teacher, and he was a very good farmer in the district of Heilbronn. So that's where my mother grew up. She was my grandfather's favorite. I never knew him myself. But I can remember my grandmother taking my dolls in her lap and talking to them, because I believed they were real. And she used to fix them up when they tore limbs. And she really just loved these dolls and telling me about these stories.
From a very early age, Caroline saw the world in a unique way.
I was the youngest in the family, but I'm the one that can really tell you from the very start, when I opened my eyes, I realized this was life. I could see the dust particles. I learned to taste colors and to feel stuff and see images. Maybe because I wanted to be on my own quite a bit, especially on the farm.
Despite growing up on an idyllic farm, life could still seem cruel.
I also wrote a poem about Vinderklik Terugblik. It's sort of a reflection on what happened there. Oh, we were very close on the farm. You know, it was so interesting because the big boys always went and fetched their horses that were grazing in the field. And I went by horse cart mostly. I enjoyed that so much. I think that's where my love for horses came from. And children tend to team up. It's quite innocent, really. They don't understand how important it might be to others. And one day, there was this family that used to have quite a bit of stuttering and stammering and just difficulty with things in life. And I loved them. I mean, I thought they were beautiful, little Joey and everybody. And they decided, well, we're going to throw bricks at you today. And so I went and I stood with him. I said to them, well, my dad was somebody in those days. And I went to stand in with them in the queue. And I said, well, now you can throw stones. Let's see what my dad has to say about this. They did stop. But as children grow older, they grow more cruel and unnatural, especially girls. But the farm school was bliss.
Her high school years were spent in a boarding house.
I went to a smallish school, but I was happy there. What was so hard to me was I could nearly see the road to the farm from my window. And I used to miss my dad and mom so much. But in those days, you were not supposed to like love, because then you went to the devil. You should not enjoy everything in life. It's not about enjoyment. Yeah. But I went to Sorrel Sylvia High School, and I absolutely adored the teachers there.
It was in high school that she started writing, and along with the many awards she won for her poetry, She also excelled in academia. What was it that drove her to excel?
I felt very close to my teachers. I felt that they really cared. You know, in those days, if you taught, you really cared about teaching. It was not this thing about the teacher sitting there in front, the kids doing whatever they wish to, chaos all over the place. There was this personal contact. The teacher used to come and sit on your desk, talk to you, care. It was so important to me not to disappoint them. My pa het 3 baie groot klippe uitgegrawe op Steenkampsdam, my grootvader se ou plaas, waar hy later weer 'n huis gebou het. En as die 3 klippe genoem geloof, hoop en liefde. En het hulle ook so gestapel. Maar die grootste van dit alles was die liefde. Ek maar eintlik bederf, hy was baie lief vir my. Ek voel soms, ek het hom in die steek gelaat. Ek kon beter wees. Ek wil altyd 'n beter mens wees. Dis my belangrik.
Was it the desire to be a better person, to want to serve, that led Caroline to becoming a teacher?
Mostly, the very autistic people of the past were bipolar or had mental problems or had their own issues in life. And that is what made me very cross when I was teaching. The teachers, some teachers just didn't care. Teachers don't realize that the most intelligent people in life suffer from dyslexia. They look down on those children. I mean, that is terrible. What a waste of time. And they break down those children. And in reality, for all intents and purposes, those pupils may be much, much more clever than the teacher. And that was sad for me. I gave some extra classes to a young guy who was dyslexic. And his marks went up by about 20%, which is quite a feat. We both wanted it to be, because we wanted him to be happy and to carry on. But people don't have the patience and they don't have the respect.
What was it that gave her insight into the students' challenge?
I think we understood each other's sadness.
This ability to empathize deeply led her to search for unorthodox ways to help her students, sometimes even enlisting the help of her parents.
Yeah, we decided we were going to have fun because I said to my father and my mother, I've got a problem. These farm school kids, these farm kids, they don't get it. They don't get Romeo and Juliet. They don't get the words. They don't get the way it's pronounced. Let us do it. Let us do it slowly. Let us explain to them along the way. And my dad said, oh yeah, I'd love to be Romeo. And we took out the knives. We were busy in the kitchen. We just had something to eat. And my mom said, yes, I'll be the nurse. I'd love to be the nurse. And then I was Juliet. And it was just great fun. We did the whole thing. And it was such a success. Then maybe it's still in here. I don't know. And then there's one of Romeo and Juliet.
Scene 2, enter old Capulet, Lady Capulet, nurse and serving men. Nurse, will you go with me into my closet to help me sort such needful ornaments you think fit to furnish me tomorrow?
No, not till Thursday. There is time enough.
Go, nurse, go with her. We'll to church tomorrow.
Ik send Juliet and the nurse.
We shall be short in our provision. 'Tis now near night. They found me a little bit interesting. I was a bit different. I remember later on when I taught at the technical high, they couldn't get kids always to sit still and concentrate, even to take out their books. Now, you're not allowed to touch them. And then one day I got very upset with them. And I jumped on the podium. I don't know whether the length of the dress had anything to do with it. Immediately, I had everybody's attention. I said, "Teacher, please do that again." And then from that moment on, I'd won them over.
She was accepted by the children she taught. But was she accepted by her colleagues?
Oh, no, never, because I say it like I feel it. I was never accepted. I thought at one stage I was a little bit outrageous. You know, they used to frown at me. And I used to think, now, do you think you are more godly, more spiritual than me? Because I know the Lord. Do you think you're more spiritual than me? Because you're so well behaved. You don't express what you feel. Are you so much nicer than what I am? I say it like it is. What else can one do? Be honest.
I would say that she is a difficult person to be with, but probably no more difficult than what I am. So, I think we're actually well suited to each other in a very strange way, but yes.
As Billy Joel once sang, honesty is such a lonely word. Was she searching for something to fill a void?
Oh, yes, I was. I was searching for something specific, some personal contact, something deeper, something not so lonely, that made me feel less lonely.
Having come from a close and protective family, why did she feel so lonely?
I think the first time I really experienced death, the death of somebody I really deeply loved, was my grandfather. I was forced to sit as a child of about 5 in the old green Ford at about 12 o'clock at night when my grandfather passed on. I sat in front of the house by the cypress trees and in the car. And I was crying all the time. I saw the lights going off and on. The grown-ups later said, we were looking for a peach for him. He was looking for the first peaches. He couldn't breathe. And I just wanted to be there for him. If I were the boy, maybe I would have been allowed in. But I wasn't.
Was it memories from Caroline's childhood that inspired the winning poem? What was the poem about?
I can remember all the things he had. It was such an interesting house. He had doloose. There was a special doloose kalmo that we played in. You know, the jawbone of an ox. And we just so enjoyed visiting there. That's what the poem is about, going back. You see, some people experience something once. I can go back, I can visit again, and I can visit again. It's here and it's here. And it's very important to me to be able to do that. So I go back to Stinkomstam.
Well, I think I recognize and accept her talent. And I believe she needs all the support she can get, which is what I try to do. I help her by editing and sometimes even voicing an opinion sometimes. And sometimes we have our differences of opinions about things as well. And she'd argue with me quite vehemently and then eventually do exactly what I asked her to do, which she could have done in the first place, but nevertheless.
Being a seasoned and recognized writer, what value does the AVBOB Poetry Competition hold for Caroline?
The poet cannot but be influenced by taking part in and learning from a competition, like the AVBOB Poetry Competition. It has changed my style, as I've learned to listen to other competitors. At the base of Africa's 11 official languages is rhythm. We hear the drum beat. It sustains us. Language consists of the building blocks of consciousness. And to understand the soul of people, we listen to their poetry.
As Caroline's father once pointed out to her, the largest of the three stones is love. Perhaps the last words should be left with Fred, her husband of 44 years.
Very much the same way I felt first time I met her. And that's it. End of story. That hasn't changed. We've had our fights. We've had our ups and downs. We've had threats of divorce. But we've overcome them all, and I'd like to think she loves me like I love her, and yeah, that's it.
Puppet Master, Caroline F. Archer. A cat is smudging its shadow against the picketing, gliding with the slant of the sun. The garden suffocates soundlessly. Lizards skitter and blink. The yard teeters on a tightrope. Late noon, the pigeons scuffle, warble, and settle next to the chimney to discuss the dry dust on the moon. The empty seas of tranquility and serenity, the bay of rainbows. Evenings don't smell of lavender. The fragrance and the flight of butterflies have been captured in a jar. The house leaks sounds of a stew simmering on the stove. A creaking door, shuffling feet, shoes that scold the floor. A pot gurgles in a shifting pitch. Little more. One moment a boy might be 11 or so, then he wakes in this house. Childhood, but a distant memory. Death does not sweep down with a scythe. Does not have a skeleton face. He sits on the roof, humming listlessly.
Don't leave it too late. Enter the 2020 AVBOB Poetry Competition between 1 August and 30 November and stand to win one of 11 cash prizes. AVBOB, we're here for you.